Hey everyone, welcome back to another video from my channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the top 10 most vulnerable incumbent United States senators up for re-election in the 2020 presidential election. There are 35 seats up for election this year, most of which are not competitive. However, there are some that will be competitive and some that are looking like likely flips. In this video, I'll discuss the 10 most likely flips, although again, this is not my actual prediction, and when we get, in the, numbers 8, 9, 10, some of those numbers I don't expect to flip, but have a good chance at flipping. So, yeah. How do we define a vulnerable incumbent? Well, there are generally 3 signs of a vulnerable incumbent senator. 1, low approval ratings. 2, wave against them. 3, strong challenger. And by wave against them, I mean a Republican in a blue state in a blue wave year is not going to do well unless they're extremely popular. That's just an example. So, without further ado, we're going to get right into it with number 10, Senator Gary Peters of Michigan. Gary Peters was first elected in 2014 in a red wave year, but he won pretty easily, so he's not too vulnerable, but is worth mentioning on this list for the sole reason that he is a strong challenger, John James. James is the only black Republican running for Senate this year. And actually has outraised Peters consistently, although it has been close. So James is polling, generally according to RCP polling behind Peters, but the race has narrowed up significantly in the past few weeks. In fact, in July, Peters was leading by sometimes double digits, but now it's narrowed down to just 4 or 5 points. So James is making a comeback, you could say. And that is interesting because the seat has been considered to be leaning towards the Democrats for most of the election cycle. I consider it to be a likely Democratic seat, although I do think that it could easily fall into the lean column. I expect Peters to win this race, but James could very well pull it off. If the Democrats do not focus a ton of money on if they don't focus money on Michigan, they could easily end up losing this race, and that would be absolutely devastating for them because they need to hold on to this seat if they want to control the Senate. So I'd say Peters has about a 20 to 25% chance at losing, which is still significant, but he's certainly not the favorite to lose. Number 9 is Senator David Perdue of Georgia. David Perdue was, again, like Gary Peters, first elected in 2014 in a red wave year, and he usually won, defeating Michelle Nunn. He is running for re-election against Jon Ossoff. Ossoff is a strong challenger, a very strong campaigner, and in the polls they've been neck and neck, unlike Peters and James, where Peters has had a consistent lead. Perdue has had a small lead in the polls, but remember that polls in Georgia do tend to underestimate the Republicans by a little bit. So it's looking pretty good for Perdue. I do expect him to outperform Donald Trump in this state, and I also expect him to get over 50% of the vote, avoiding a runoff. However, he could lose this because this is kind of looking like a blue wave year. I'm not saying it 100% will be, but I think it could easily end up being a blue wave year. And in a blue wave year, someone like Jon Ossoff could easily take that momentum and beat Perdue narrowly. So, my final prediction is that Perdue will win by 4 or 5 points, but he basically has a 2 and 3 shot at winning, which is still nothing to sneeze at, so, yeah. Number 8 is Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa, and there are going to be people who are expecting her to see her lower on this list for possible flips, but gotta remember that there are other people here on this list as well. So Joni Ernst is a senator from Iowa, and like all these other senators, she was considered a rising star in the Republican Party in 2014. She won that seat in 2014, even though it was expected for her to lose. So that was an upset there. So yeah, and she is currently the favorite to win re-election, but this is considered to be the most competitive Senate race by me and many others. So she is in the fight of her political life. Her approval rating has been falling, and her opponent has consistently out-fundraised her, so that's a bad sign. However, she is running in a presidential election year in a leaning red state, and she is polling not too poorly, whereas this time around in 2014, she was polling considerably behind her Democratic opponent. So it looks like she's going to narrowly win, but she is very, very vulnerable. And if Democrats pick up this seat, it'll be a very, very good sign for them. Number 7, and this is my first predicted flip, is Senator Steve Daines of Montana. Steve Daines was, like a similar trend, first elected in 2014 in a red wave year, and he defeated Amanda Curtis. He won this race easily as a result of A, being a red wave, but also because Amanda Curtis was unpopular and the Democratic Party was divided in that state. So Daines won easily, but this time around, it's not going to be too easy for him. He's running against a popular... Oh, I think I just accidentally plugged in my computer. He's running against a popular governor, Governor Steve Bullock, who is the incumbent governor, by the way, of Montana, and his approval rating has been sinking a little bit, so that's not a good sign for him. He also has been out fundraised by Bullock, although, again, fundraising doesn't tell the entire story. Like, people like Amy McGrath and Jamie Harrison have been out fundraising Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham, but that doesn't really matter. So, yeah. I expect Bullock to narrowly win as a result of his popularity, and because Montana does like to send moderate Democrats to the U.S. Senate, like John Tester and Max Baucus. Daines is very vulnerable, and in fact, I get a ton of Steve Daines ads on YouTube, so... Number 6, and now we're getting into Montana and Iowa were pure toss-ups. Now getting into the tilt-leaning Democrat seats. Number 6 is Thom Tillis of North Carolina. Another Republican first elected in 2014, Tillis was known for being just your average Republican. She votes with Donald Trump most of the time and is very, very conservative on some issues, but more moderate on others. So, again, he's going to be he'll get unified support from his own party. However, his opponent, Cal Cunningham, is getting unified support from his party, the Democratic Party, and Tillis's primary turnout was not good at all. Cunningham consistently has out-fundraised him, has pulled ahead of him. In fact, the most recent poll out of North Carolina put Cunningham ahead by 11. So that's not a good sign for Tillis. However, he is an incumbent, and North Carolina could easily go red this year. So I do think he has a chance, but at this point in time, I don't expect him to win, which is what makes them very, very vulnerable. Number 5 is Susan Collins. Susan Collins is a senator from Maine who is once known for being very bipartisan. She enjoyed high approval ratings until Brett Kavanaugh came around in 2018. And Collins controversially voted to confirm Kavanaugh, even though it was expected that she would vote to not confirm him, to the Supreme Court. This made her approval sink. Remember, she's in a blue state, and the only reason she'd been winning at previous elections was because of her record of bipartisanship. And that has all gone down the drain. She took a couple of Republican votes too many, and now is not the favorite to win re-election. Her challenger, Sarah Gideon, has consistently out-fundraised her, has pulled ahead of her, and is the clear favorite to win this race. Collins could win, but in a blue state, in a presidential election year, it's not looking too good for her. Number 4 is Kelly Loeffler, and for those of you who are surprised to see Loeffler on this list, remember that she's going to lose her seat, but it's going to stay in Republican hands. This is because this is a 4-way race, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, and the other Republican, Doug Collins, I expect to win and defeat all his challengers, including Loeffler. So Loeffler will likely lose her seat, but it'll still be a hold for the Republican Party. Loeffler had an insider trading scandal, and her opponent has been endorsed by President Trump. Number 3 is Senator Martha McSally of Arizona. Martha McSally was never even elected to her position. In fact, she lost the 2018 Senate race, but then after John McCain died and John Kyle resigned, she was given the seat. She's now up for election in 2020 against popular former astronaut Mark Kelly and husband of former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. Kelly is well known in Arizona and is moderate, which Arizona seems to like a lot. They like electing moderates. McSally has a low approval rating and is very partisan, which makes her unlikely to get a ton of independent votes, which is what could kill her in the end. So I expect her to lose this race, and by a decent amount. At number 2, we have Senator Cory Gardner of Colorado. Cory Gardner has been identified as the most vulnerable incumbent Republican since the beginning of time in this election, but this is looking really bad for him for the most part because of his opponent, John Hickenlooper. Hickenlooper is the former popular governor of Colorado who enjoyed very high approval ratings during his final years in office. He also ran for president, but that didn't go too well. So Hickenlooper is currently leading Gardner in the polls, always has been, and he will continue to lead him in the polls up until Election Day. It is expected that Cory Gardner will lose this race by 7 to 10 points, which is my prediction as well. He's a Republican in a blue state that's not very popular, so even if he outperforms Donald Trump, which is very likely, he'll still probably lose, because at this point Colorado is a likely Democrat state. And at number 1, we have Senator Doug Jones of Alabama. Sorry for the poor picture quality, I couldn't find a better one. Doug Jones was elected in the 2017 special election as a result of his opponent, Roy Moore, being a child molester, and he still only won by 1.7%. So if he only beats a child molester by 1.7% in Alabama, he's going to definitely lose this time around. And there are a lot of people who like Doug Jones, and he will outperform Joe Biden in the state, as he is a moderate Democrat, but I don't expect him to win. This is a presidential election year where you have a not as controversial Republican opponent who has the backing of Donald Trump. It's not looking too good for Jones. He could win, but I don't see it happening. And running as a Democrat in Alabama for re-election, he's easily the most vulnerable incumbent senator in the United States Senate. So guys, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe. I did spend a good amount of time on this. I hope that you enjoyed it. Tell me in the comments who you think is the most vulnerable incumbent senator. Give me your list, 1 through 10. And there are some honorable mentions. Lindsey Graham is somewhat vulnerable, so is Mitch McConnell. And I guess you could make the argument that Jaheen Shaheen is vulnerable, but I don't think she is. So, again, guys, thanks, and I'll see you all in the next one. Check out all the links in the description. And, yeah, bye, guys.